Thomas Oetterli, welcome. You've been at Schindler for a long time, over 20 years, but I've read that the beginning wasn't so easy. The first job you wanted at Schindler, it didn't really work out, did it?
That's true. I was applying for a job in the financial community within Schindler, in fact in a central consolidation department. And I was making it for the round of the last two candidates, but they turned me down.
What happened?
Well, obviously they have found a better one, or they thought they have found a better one, and so they called me and said, "We are very sorry, you don't get the job." And I said, "Well, why?" And they said, "You are too young." So this was, of course, a little bit of difficulty because it was the only thing I could not change. I could not change my age. And so they hired or wanted to hire the other candidate, but apparently the other candidate had different offers, and he accepted, in fact, at the end another offer. So a couple of days afterwards, they were calling me again and asked me, "Are you still interested in the job?" And then I had somehow to overcome my ego, and I said, "Well, I now feel a few days older. Now I think I would accept the job." So that was the way how I came to Schindler. I was like second class.
But eventually it turned out quite well, because you spent almost your whole career at Schindler, and you said it yourself. You were young, you came here, you're from Lucerne, so you knew Schindler well,
yes,
I guess. But why that urge to go to Schindler, and why was there a specific reason why from your early days as a student you knew, "I want to work for Schindler"?
I did not know. I saw an advertising for a job in the newspaper, and just had founded my family, so I wanted to have a job which is not too far away from home. And I saw that ad in the newspaper, and I thought, okay, why not? Finance is anyway a topic I liked very much, so I was applying just for that reason for the job at Schindler, and at the end it worked out well.
Numbers are your strong suit. You said you weren't afraid of numbers from an early age on as well. Did that help in your career at Schindler as well, that you were always maybe as good as the CFO, or you were always very good with numbers as well?
Well, there are still some people who call me I'm still quite similar to a CFO. I think numbers help, but it's more about the drivers of the numbers. So what kind of actions do you have to take in order to achieve certain numbers? Because a profit or a revenue is just the result of actions you are doing. But I think in every managerial position, it helps if you understand the financial framework, because at the end, everybody wants to achieve certain numbers. So this was a real support for me. The other possibility would have been an engineer. I think that's also a good baseline or a good starting point, but I think I would be a very lousy engineer. But I was, I think, quite a good financial guy.
Now, some might say, okay, you can get numbers quite well, but you have to understand numbers and you have to understand people as well. Mm-hmm. Do these two things match with you, or do you often think maybe I put too much emphasis on the numbers and I didn't see the people enough?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm in a lucky situation that I'm quite strong in both areas. I'm a real people manager. I do not manage so much the numbers. Of course, at the end, you have to bring numbers. But I think a strength I have is that I can develop and communicate the shared ambition. I also have a lot of town hall meetings when I'm visiting country organizations. I'm together with hundreds of people, and I try to convince them on the Schindler way where we do want to go. And I think I'm quite a good leader for a company like Schindler.
What is Schindler way? If you talk about is there a specific Schindler way?
Yeah, I think so. We are a Swiss company, of course. The roots are in Switzerland, although we are a global organization. And Swiss people usually are, I would not say hesitating, but they are very much aware about risks. On the other side, they are working long-term on opportunities. So we are not only looking to the next quarter. Whatever we do, we try to do things which are the right things for the next 10 or 20 years. That's, let's say, very much forward-looking. And I think this is a little bit the Swiss way, and that's also the Schindler way. Also doing investments in things where maybe you do not know whether it will work out, but we have an environment which allows us also to go beyond, let's say, the normal daily or day-to-day business, and to do some trials into the future, which apparently, with all my pre-successes, have been worked out very well.
Are you risk takers in that behalf? I mean, are you trying things out where you know they might work or they might not work out?
Yes, to a certain degree, we are risk takers. I think Schindler is quite an innovative company. A lot of the developments in the industry, Schindler had a leading position in terms of technology of elevators and escalators. I think the latest trend is digitization, where Schindler is investing a lot into digitizing not only our field, but also digitizing our products. And you do not know at the moment how much payback or how fast a payback will happen, but we don't want to lose that opportunity in case it really will work out, and we want to do it right the first time.
You were talking about risks before, and I was thinking, is it typical Swiss as well that you kind of work in a trust business as well? Because you want people to trust you if they go into one of your products. They want them to work because it's a matter of life and death as well. Is that one of the strong points as well, one of the Swiss qualities of Schindler, that people actually trust you and trust your products?
I think this is super important. You know, the topic of safety, there is a no compromise policy. Some people are scared when they enter an elevator. They think about, you know, the elevator of hell which is falling down. So having a safe product is a must in our industry. Not only for Schindler, I think for every elevator and escalator company, this is absolutely crucial. I think where we try to differentiate as well, besides safety, is in terms of quality. Swissness is still a unique selling proposition we have, and we try to create a premium by differentiating from competition by delivering a higher quality of our products, but also a higher quality of our service and our behavior. So a trusted partner. I think that's quite a lot the Schindler way.
You're really in a world market. You're
Yes.
one of the world leaders. There are competitors. There are fierce competitors who are probably trying to push the price as much as they can. How can you do both? You can deliver quality while still being Swiss, so having to deal with all these, you know, more expensive labor, for example, and you still have to be competitive in a way. How difficult is that, and how difficult has it become through the years?
Well, I think, you know, although we still say the roots are Swiss, but we have become a very global company. So we are not only producing elevators or escalators in Switzerland or in Europe, but we produce, install, and serve wherever the market is. So over the last couple of years, we really globalized our operations. We have strengthened our footprint in India and China, where we also have big R&D centers, where we produce or develop products for the local market and do not apply anymore, let's say, a Swiss product all over the world.
Of course, you know China very well. You worked for Schindler in China. Did that help you, first of all, becoming CEO, and second of all, understand your probably most important market way better than others do?
I think the ranking is, yes, I started to understand China much, much better. If a market is almost 2/3 of the worldwide market, it is not necessary, but I think it supports me in today's position I have. I think I have a good understanding about the Chinese market. I was living there for a couple of years, and it was really an eye-opener for me. I have to say, I love the country. I admire how the country is managed. You know, it's so big, 1.4 billion people. It's not so easy to run such a country. When I compare it with Switzerland, how difficult it can be just to run a country with 8 million people. So yes, it helped me, and it also helps me today in my position. Was it a condition to become CEO? Well,
that's
I
for
don't
others
know.
to ask.
That's for others to ask. I think it has definitely helped, but I'm not sure it was now a condition which had to be met. But it helped me a lot.
You said after you came back, you said it was quite a culture shock. in reverse, because
Yes.
it was like, driving with 200
Yes.
on a freeway and then coming back and driving with 40. And, Shanghai is not Epicone,
Yes,
Canton
that's
Lucerne. Do you ever miss it?
Yes, I do. I do. The one element I learned in China was how to deal with speed, because market requirements are changing very fast. Customers are very impatient. When they have an issue, they want to have a very quick solution. So they're maybe not so friendly like the Swiss people are. And yes, I have to go on a regular basis to Asia Pacific and especially to China to take the breath of speed and agile organization and then come back and apply some of the rules again here in central Switzerland.
Speaking of applying the rules, what rules do you apply being the CEO? Coming from that Chinese culture, maybe. I've read somewhere that you're not a boss who likes to be in his office and being away from the troops, so to speak. So you want to be with the team. How do you lead? How do you manage people? Is it the Chinese way or more the Swiss way?
In fact, the ways are not so totally different. I have seen a lot of similarities in the two cultures. It's a lot about the relationship, long-term relationship. It's a lot about trust. Okay, the size and the scale is completely different, but there are a lot of similarities between the two cultures. If I go back to my leadership style, yes, it's true, I'm not a desktop manager. I need some KPIs, I have regular meetings with my direct reports to follow up on the progress we are doing. But I think the strengths I have is to go out, to be together with our employees, independent what kind of hierarchical level, and to talk directly face to the employees and to transmit our ambition and our strategic direction. And I think with that, people are much more energized than if they read an email from the CEO. I think in many cases this is quite boring, but if you hear it live, then I think they are more inspired.
Some might say in your business, okay, a lift is still a lift and an elevator stays an elevator. Where do you see Schindler go in that regard? I mean, a lot of things are changing with digitalization, you said it yourself. Do you see your area, your industry changing completely, or will it still be in 20 years' time a lift, even if it looks modern, it stays a lift, right?
It stays a lift. It's a question we are discussing very often in the executive committee. Is there what could be a disruption of our industry?
Do you see one?
In fact, looking, I do not see so much disruption possible in the product itself. I think digitization, this can become the Internet of Things. This might be disruptive. But I think if you lead in that area, then you have a very good chance to be stronger at the end of the transformation process than you have been at the beginning. Interesting enough, today everybody is talking about autonomous driving. The first industry who started with that, in fact, was the elevator industry.
When the bellboy disappeared.
Exactly. Right? 100 years ago, you have the lift boy who said, okay, which floor do you want to take? And then he was pressing the button, okay, we go to the third floor. And 100 years ago, they have started to be disappearing. And so we had autonomous driving as the first mobility provider on Earth.
But of course, the sign of times help you in a way, because people will always be, I guess, always be constructing. There will always be people needing new buildings, these buildings, new lifts, and even if the old lifts are not new anymore, then they have to be redesigned or reconstructed. So in a way, you work in an area that can't really go wrong, no?
Well, that's the reason why I'm working since 25 years in this industry almost. It's true, the global mega trends, in fact, are very positive for us. Urbanization is a key driver. We have now about half of the population on Earth is living in cities. But still, over the next 10 to 15 years, there will be 1 billion people moving on top to today's population to cities. This means every second, 2 persons somewhere in the world are moving from a rural area into a city. And this, of course, is a very strong foundation of our business model. And the second topic is, you mentioned it correctly, when you look on the average age of an elevator in Europe or in North America, it's somewhere between 20 to 30 years, depending on the market. Now imagine you would be outside on the street and the average age of the cars would be 25 years. You probably would say, wow, I have to do something. And the same, of course, we say with elevators. You want to increase the safety level. You want to make a new redesign that it looks nicer. You also apply new technologies that the ride comfort is better. Or with digitization, you start to interact with passengers in the lift or on the escalator. So yes, I think it's a very, very healthy business environment for us.
And that the service itself, I think that's where the real business is at Schindler, right? I mean, it's not really constructing new lifts. There's more money in the service industry.
Well, this was maybe the case in the past. In the past, I think the elevator industry was similar to other industry where you have a strong after-sales business. There was a certain subsidizing happening, but those times have gone. It's the margins or the prices in the service part have come down over the years. Costs, it's very labor intensive, so costs went up with salary increases. And so today you cannot afford anymore that you have this subsidizing of one business towards the other. It's true that probably the overall margins are still stronger in the service part, but you also have to make money in the new equipment business.
Speaking of making money, some people who are making a lot of money are footballers. You were a semi-professional footballer, and you probably didn't do that much money as a footballer, but you were a goalie, a goalkeeper. What did the experience from football teach you in business? Do you think back at that time sometimes and think, that's something I learned on the pitch that I can use now? I
think very often, honestly. Maybe it's not only about football, it's about team sport. And I take this example very, very often when you look on cup games in football. And sometimes a small David is winning against a big Goliath. Why? It makes no sense at all, because the team, the individual players of a superstar team, in fact, they should win 10-0. So why do they lose a certain game? It's because besides the quality of the individuals, it's also about the quality of the team. And when a let's say a less successful team is winning against one of the big ones, it's because in that moment of truth, everybody's starting to help each other. And you can create an energy and the spirit of this time we will win. And then it happens that big clubs are not winning against a small David. You cannot do that all the time. Yeah. So you have to improve, of course, the individual capabilities, but the team spirit at the end is crucial for the overall success. Does that mean you'd rather have 11 nameless but passionate players in your team than 1 or 2 Messis or Ronaldos, but not being into it that much? I think the Ronaldos and the Messis only can be so strong because they have a very strong team around who help them to somehow develop and show their creativity and their incredible uniqueness they have in playing football. Alone, they would not be successful. They only are successful because there are 10 other players around, or as a team, maybe even 20 players around, which allow them to excel their capabilities. I do not say that I want to have 11, boring players. Each one has to have his uniqueness, otherwise you cannot come to a top of an organization. But the team is more important that the single individual has success at the end. Only the team success counts. And in a company like Schindler, we are a family company. This is one of our other DNAs we have. And as a family company, we feel that every single day that, yes, it's all about the team. We serve the company. We don't serve only our single individual success.
But I see there's still a sportsman in you. If I ask you now, if you had the choice at 25, 27, to be a professional football player with all the success that comes with it, or looking back now, what you achieved with Schindler, which road would you choose back to 27?
Well, in fact, I was in front of such a decision a little bit younger when I was 21. I thought I will not be able to earn enough money, that after the football career, I can have a good life afterwards. So I took the traditional way, okay, I have done that, but now let's do something serious. Do I regret? No. It was a great time, but usually I do not look back. I enjoy what I have done, and I enjoy now what I'm doing now. And yeah, I had the chance to play with some very famous footballers on that time. Everybody remembers them, but nobody remembers me anymore in terms of football, so I had to find another area. Maybe I was not good enough.
But you never dream at night
No.
being part of a World Cup final or something?
No. If I would dream, I would probably not dream that I'm part of the World Cup final, but to be the world champion at the end.
You will not be a world champion in football anymore. You can be world champion, in your job now. Schindler, as I said, is one of the world players in that field. Do you ever see Schindler going on a little bit further, or that one day? What is your goal? Do you want to be a world leader by far, and the competitors just losing sight, or what can be a realistic goal for you?
I think it's always what when you say you would like to be the leader as a company, there are of course different ways how you can measure that. Some companies measure the lead just pure size or pure profitability. I think for us it's a little bit different. This might come, but it's not our key ambition. I think the key ambition is we would like to lead in the way how we are. Our core values we have are very, very important for us, and also for me personally. We now have a history of 144 years, and we have several generations of the family Schindler and Bonar who have led that company.
That is quite a pressure as well.
It's a pressure, yes, but it's also an honor, because the task we have is that at the end, when we hand over to our successors, that the company is a better company than the company we have taken over from our pre-successors. Then you have done, in fact, a good job. Continuous improvement, growing more than the others, have a sustainable profitability. This, in fact, is our ambition. We want to grow faster, yes, than the market. We want to continuously improve. We want to improve our results, but also the way how we do business. And at the end, it's all about the team. So it's not a single key performance indicator we are focusing on. We are much more long-term thinking.
And I guess you wanna ride in a Schindler lift wherever you are in the world. Is it true that your daughter is kind of upset when you go into a lift that is not Schindler? I wrote that somewhere, right?
Well, she does not like so much being alone in a lift, but she's looking very much on the brand. She feels better in our brand, but I do not know whether this is a reality or just obsession by myself that I have taught her and indoctrinated that into her mind.
A final question, speaking about that obsession, I read that you are actually taking the lift instead of walking the stairs. I was just wondering, is that only because you're lazy, or is that a corporate identity until the core?
I think it's both, honestly. It's not only corporate identity. I just prefer to take the lift than to move up physically 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 stops. That's true.
Certainly. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.